Please welcome President and Chief Executive Officer of Business Leaders for Michigan, Jeff Donofrio.
Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us here today. I'm here to give you a little bit of a deep dive into our education system, how things are going, but also how we're doing on the path to becoming a top 10 state. So I want to take you through some quick data before you get to the wonderful leaders that are going to come up after me on the next panel. You know, when we look at how we get to a top 10 state, it's something that Business Leaders for Michigan has been really dedicated to on a daily basis. And our board members, made up of Michigan's largest companies, the CEOs and chief executive officers, really are focused on how it is that we close the gap with other states. And back in 2009, when we were formed, that was a pretty heady task. You look at where Michigan was ranked in most categories, we were 49th and 50th. We were really, really behind the eight ball. This is a good example of it, business climate perception, where in 2009 we were ranked 49th in the country. Now, through a lot of hard work, through Democrats and Republicans coming together, we've seen a tremendous amount of progress in a whole bunch of different areas, including business climate perception, the ranking of CEOs around the country on if Michigan is a good place to do business. But that hasn't come. We also want to make sure we don't slide backwards in this business climate perception. But when we broaden the aperture a bit, we look at labor force participation, we look at GDP per capita, household income, poverty rate, population growth, what we see is that Michigan has gone from the bottom to about the middle, 31st in the country. Now, that's good that we've actually made a lot of progress, but to get from middle to top is going to take a heck of a lot more. It's going to be harder. It's going to mean that we have to overcome some things that Michigan has had a hard time doing over the last few years, really the last couple of decades. Being persistent, having a strategy that's widely agreed to, that outlasts a term of office. We've heard about that power of "and" this conference. And it means that we can't just do one silver bullet thing that wins a press cycle. It has to be a 10, 15-year approach to how we improve our metrics and get to be that top 10 state. It's things like the framework we just put out on a holistic approach to economic development that balances place, entrepreneurship innovation, competitive incentives, customer service, and talent. That says we have to do all of this together and all of it well if we really want to be one of the top performing states in the country. And education is one of those critical places. So let's look at where we are in education. 9 years ago, we were 32nd in the number of individuals in our state with a post-high school credential, a degree, certificate, something else. Fast forward to today, and unfortunately we've fallen to 37th. It's not that we haven't grown, it's that our competitors have grown faster. So we are going to have to find ways to come together around initiatives, goals, and I think strategies that are going to get us past our competitors. And unfortunately in the Great Lakes it means we're last in education. And education is so important to our state's future. We all know this. Income and education go hand in hand. And if you look at a person with an associate's degree, they get a 20% pay increase compared to someone with just a high school diploma. A bachelor's degree, almost a 70% increase. And it's one of the reasons that Michigan has fallen off in terms of its average per capita income. The U.S. started growing faster than Michigan around the 2000 era. It wasn't the case in 1980, around the time that I was born. 1980, you could walk off a stage with a diploma from high school, and you could get a really great job. You could live a middle-class lifestyle. You didn't have to have that education. That is not the case today, unfortunately. And what we see is that through recession, through disruptions in our economy and transitions in many of our industries, that's been even more so true. That Michigan's income, unfortunately, has been below U.S. So it's also our education struggles has led to us really missing out on some of the knowledge economy growth that has happened throughout the U.S. For 20 years, the U.S. grew at about a total of 35% in the knowledge economy jobs. Michigan, during that same period of time, grew 0% in professional services, one of the biggest categories in the knowledge economy. And talent is seeking out those knowledge economy jobs and those hubs of knowledge economy growth. 9 of the top 10 destinations for individuals moving from Michigan are top in knowledge economy growth. So how do we change our, and has got to be the centerpiece of how we do that. And when we look at the foundation of education, where 20% of our population, those under the age of 18, 2 million people, are going to start their journey, that's in the K-12 system. And the K-12 system today, if you ask the average Michigander how we're doing, they say, we're doing all right, we're about average. We asked them twice last year, they said we were 26 out of 50. The reality is, unfortunately, though, that we're 40th in fourth grade reading, we're 42nd in high school graduation rate, and we're 40th overall as systems ranked across the country. It's not because we don't have good teachers and good administrators and they're not trying their best. Our education system just isn't designed for the economy of today and of the future. And it's long past time that we do real systemic reform in education. We look at community colleges, of course, and if our education system and the K-12 system isn't performing at peak performance, well, it's going to make the lives of our community colleges a bit harder. And community colleges really represent a needed piece of our competitiveness. They strengthen that talent pipeline. They solve for those talent gaps that we see in local communities. They support economic growth. Just ask Tennessee, who puts a community college campus alongside many of their developments. They can lower the cost of a four-year degree, and they can create equitable pathways to apprenticeships, to certificates that really lead to middle-class lifestyles. But unfortunately, we did a study with Boston Consulting Group that said that community colleges struggle. They've seen a 56% drop in 10-year enrollment growth. They have a 25% graduation rate, and that's led to about 1.2 million Michiganders with some college and no degree. So they've gone to college, they've made that expense, they've taken out debt, but they haven't achieved that certificate or degree. And that puts us at a place where we're uncompetitive with other states in our community college system. We're 49th for enrollment growth, 48th for six-year completion, and 43rd for the number of people with some college and no degree. So we're going to have to wrap our arms around community colleges and the higher education system to help them, to make sure that we can be competitive in the future. And we know that four-year universities are critical here too. They inject billions of dollars into our economy every year through research and development. They graduate something like 80,000 people a year with advanced degrees. And they're helping build businesses, they're becoming entrepreneurs, and they're adding to the middle-class lifestyle and really the economy overall every year. But we're still losing more college graduates than we attract or retain every year, losing about overall 14% of our college graduates. So we need to do better to make sure we can reverse the brain drain as well. Now, I'm going to tell you why, though, even though those numbers are sobering. But I would guess that most of us who have been to a Mackinac Policy Conference have probably heard some of these numbers before. But there's optimism for the future, and I'll tell you why. Leadership matters in this space. Leadership at individual institutions, at schools. I think leadership in the business community, and all of you who are gathered here today who, frankly, have the solutions to many of the problems that we just discussed. But I would say there are things happening right now that we should be proud of. The governor, in her first speech, her first State of the State speech, set a goal of having 60% of our adult population by 2030 with a post-high school degree. That target has helped us put together various programs and initiatives, not just in state government, but in the private sector, in local communities like the Oakland 80 program that Oakland County has put together. But it's led to the Michigan Achievement Scholarship that's helping people go into four-year institutions. It's led to the Michigan Reconnect program that's helping anybody over the age of 25 without a college credential to get to community college tuition free. And that's increasing the number of people who are enrolling in those institutions, and now will be increasing the number of people who graduate. We also see that there's a ton of innovation happening from our 4 years, partnering with business, partnering with local communities to create those knowledge economy hubs, both in Detroit, Grand Rapids, and elsewhere. The University of Michigan Center for Innovation that's partnering with the Illich Organization, District Detroit, one of the largest investments in the city's history, partnering also with related industries, Stephen Ross. That's going to be an engine for economic growth for the city of Detroit. We also see Michigan State partnering with Henry Ford Health and the Pistons. GVSU is going to bring another 2,500 college students to downtown, making it even more likely that they'll stay in that community. So there is so much that we can achieve together, and that's happening right now. And those examples are going to be replicated, I think, across the state by really, really strong leaders. Now, you're going to hear from a number of them, and I want you've got a chance to ask audience questions if you haven't heard. challenge them on what comes next, what we can do to really make this state better. But I hope you'll join us in taking that systemic approach, finding the holistic way to approach our becoming a top 10 state and making sure that every Michigander has a chance to be successful. Thank you so much today.
Please welcome Lieutenant Governor of the State of Michigan, Garlin Gilchrist II. President of Grand Valley State University, Philomena V. Mantella. President of the University of Michigan, Santa J. Ono. President of Lansing Community College, Steve Robinson. And to moderate the discussion, Political Director and Interim General Manager at Michigan Radio, Zoe Clark.
Well, hello, everyone. Hi. Happy first official day of the conference. So I'm excited to hear from these folks to my left, but first I want to let you know that we want to also hear from you all. So I'm going to be asking some questions over the next 40 minutes or so, but we really want to hear from you all too, right? This is your opportunity to get to ask these really smart folks some questions. So how that's going to work is everyone's got one of these, and you've got the app. And so you're going to go to the conference app, and you're going to go to Agenda, select Talent today and tomorrow, and select Q&A at the top of your screen and submit your questions. And I've got this little handy-dandy thing, and I'm going to figure out those questions and get some answers for all of you. But first, I think we've got to start with the data that Jeff just sort of teed us all on, and it's a little dire, right? But we're gonna figure out how to be optimistic here. So I think I want to first, before we get into too many details, set the level and just understand better from the folks at the higher ed institutions here. President Robinson, how does the relatively poor K through 12 results impact your institution?
Well, it's an impact, but regionally across the state, and so many of my colleagues from the sister community colleges in Michigan are here. Approaching that with a partnership with the local K-12 school districts and owning that lack of preparedness is, I think, really, really important. It is a challenge. So much of what we do in two-year college open admissions colleges involves developmental education, getting folks up to speed quickly with boot camps and other strategies. There are a lot of national conversations going about the best way to handle that. I can tell you what we shouldn't do, and that is to point fingers at the K-12, many of them under-resourced, because we take everybody. We are open admissions institutions, and it's our responsibility to meet students where they are. So it's an issue, but it's what we've been designed for and what we've been dealing with since we were founded.
President Ono, how does it impact the University of Michigan?
Well, I can tell you that we have some extraordinary talent coming up from K through 12, but we also feel a great responsibility to partner with our community colleges, and those partnerships are strong and strengthening, but also with the K through 12 system. We're investing significantly in Maryville College and Detroit Public Schools, and as you heard, we're investing significantly in the University of Michigan Center for Innovation. So we want to be part of the solution. We want to partner with the state and also with our partners in the community college sector.
President Mantella.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of space for innovation here, and I couldn't agree more that we just have to embrace the space. We've started a collab, which is really a space to stand up prototypes that have opportunity to impact. Give you one example. We have a program called K-12 Connect that started during the pandemic as kind of a homework helpline, and we're doing over 90,000 tutoring hours across the state digitally, and supporting K-12 with our collegiate learners. We're also inspiring students to teach because they're getting an experience that's positive, helping young people. We've got folks who haven't come out of privilege that we need to support. We've got learning loss in the pandemic. So there's all sorts of opportunity to lean in. And I think the objective is that every one of us have to look for some new ways to lean in, innovate, and then share. Because the problem is so big, if we don't open ourselves up with sharing the opportunities of what's worked and what hasn't, then it will just make the progress slower. So I'm just excited to lean into it.
And I want to have that conversation because, as we've talked about, it's not just on, your shoulders to do. It's everybody in this room and throughout the state. Lieutenant Governor, I'm curious though, as you hear this from these institutions and as you travel across the state, is there this disconnect? There's so much pride for the state of Michigan and for our universities. This is usually where someone yells like, "Go blue" or "green" or something like that in the audience.
Blue.
Or other blue. Other blue.
Mike.
Or other blue.
Yeah, there we go. There you go. But I'm curious about this disconnect between the pride that we have and yet these conversations about we're not where we need to be.
So I think the pride needs to be the fuel that we use to develop the solutions. It's what I think can energize and inspire us to know that this is something that we can accomplish, that we can overcome. And that when there's progress to be made, that means that we have to make the progress. I know that sounds trite, but what it means is we have to search within ourselves. Now, certainly Governor Whitmer and I, we have made one of the signatures of our education. Every budget we propose has committed significant increase or proposed significant increases to community college funding as well as our four-year institutions. We know that we have a role to play programmatically, vision-wise, set the goal of something like 60 by 30. And we've seen some of this bear fruit. We talked about the down enrollment over the last 10 years for community colleges. What we have seen, though, since the full implementation of the Michigan Reconnect program, we've seen community college enrollment jump 19% between 2020 and 2021. So we have work that shows that we can make progress if we continue to be committed to it. But this needs to be all hands on deck. And so we're going to continue to be creative, but innovating in this space means people looking within themselves for new and different and better ideas that create more value. That is what innovation is and what it means, and all of us are capable of it. And I, as a person who has school-aged children in Detroit public schools right now, this is not a theoretical exercise for me, I want to see this work too. I want my kids to feel like they have a path for themselves and their futures to build their family here in the state of Michigan, and I think we can do that.
Well, let's talk about that innovation. And I want to hear from you all because I know each of you has laundry lists of the things that you're doing in your institutions. President Mantella, you started talking a little bit about that, but give us some examples of what innovation in your sphere looks like.
So we've got a couple of domains that we're really focused on. One is the K-12 support. And, I like to say we don't believe in the model where you throw them over the wall from one level of education to the next, then you throw them out into the workforce. It doesn't work anymore. So we've got to look for ways to integrate work and learning and look for ways that there's no dead-end certificate, degree, or credential, that people haven't picked a path that you can't make a change, or you lose the currency of whatever the education or experience was. So we're innovating in competency-based education. We're innovating in what we call a mastery transcript, which is a space in which we try to curate and capture experience and be sure that not only we value it, but the high schools around us value it, that the employers around us value it. So that's one domain, all about, really how do you integrate experience. Another is aligning with today's talent needs. And so we're an institution that has liberal education at our core, but we don't embrace an either or model, like you're either liberal education or your professional studies. No, you can be both. And so we're working with our local employers. We have 5 now working on a program called the Accelerated Talent Link, which is how do we embed in the liberal education the absolutely most critical competency that they want tomorrow in their firms. And they're helping us define what that package looks like. And what's happening when those employers are co-creating with us? It's influencing all sorts of things. And we're not seeing this polarity of either or education, either or integration of work and learning. We've got to really embrace both. And those are a couple areas. So we're all about, skills integration, integration of work experience, and then supporting K-12 and pathways that can enter and exit education as people's lifestyles change.
President Robinson, I see you nodding.
Lot to nod about, right? The other community college folks who are here love the conference theme because we think of community colleges as the original both and solution, right? In terms of innovative partnerships that we're involved in at Lansing Community College in mid-Michigan, I can think of 3 quick ones. One is a transfer program we have with our partner, Michigan State University. President Woodruff is here. We have a dual admission program called Envision Green, where we're blowing away as many obstacles to community college university transfer. On the way up here, I got a great email from a student, Mackenzie. I wrote her admission, reference letter for a scholarship at U of M. She just graduated with a psychology degree. She wrote me to tell me that she's been accepted to the clinical social work program at Michigan State, and that is a win for all of us. So next level partnerships. Also in mid-Michigan, many folks in the room know, we've been talking about attracting EVs and semiconductor manufacturers. Well, we're really excited about our partnership with Ultium, with building a giant battery plant right next to our West Campus, not just partnering to help them hire the 1,700 people they have to hire, they're going to be doing that on our campus. They're using a building to do all that talent attraction. That foot traffic will happen at Lansing Community College as swing space while they're building that plant. And then the last one you know well is our partnership with Michigan Radio. We're the only Michigan Radio affiliate to have our own local content on. We're excited about working with Michigan Radio. So I would say next level partnership is the innovation that we need.
The checks in the mail.
I want to zoom in on the point President Robinson just made, though, about the connection between the work we've done to attract generational investment and job creation to the state of Michigan, and how that creates educational opportunities. Sometimes the question is, okay, we've gotten this investment, how are we going to fill these jobs that we're going to create, that are going to pay these amazing wages, that are going to employ people at the highest level in terms of STEM and scientists and engineers, but also our technicians and other support professionals. And that is exactly the kind of partnership that we hope to build. And it's why the governor and I focus on economic development in every region of the state of Michigan, because every region has an opportunity that is capable of building that type of partnership. And that when we combine those 2 approaches, it will also help fuel demand for more excellence in K-12 education services that we're going to invest in equitably. So this all is additive to one another, and that's why we focus, try to focus at a comprehensive way at the state level.
And
President Ono, does that? Sorry.
I just wanted to add, because I think that's so important that, it's not about only attracting employers one employer at a time. It's about what the strategy is overall, and that's got to be a deep partnership between education, the economic development, the partnerships we can forge. It's more holistic, which I really appreciate you saying.
I would say the stars are aligning here in Michigan. I just recently came here in October of last year, and I got to tell you, the energy in the state is really remarkable, and it's infectious. The alignment between the support from the state of Michigan, from the cities across the state, the educational institutes, it's really all about and. And if you look at jobs attraction or technology transfer, you need the whole spectrum of talent. You need to have the community colleges, you need all of the research universities, and we're coming together like never before. And I really think that Michigan and Detroit, this is the place. 10 years from now, that'll be the headline, that this group of individuals have come together, business leaders of Michigan, they're using a data-driven approach, and it's really exciting, the atmosphere at BLM. People are coming together, we're determined to move this entire state up the economic landscape, and it's going to happen.
Well, so much of the conversation this week has been teed off by this report from Citizens Research Council about population, right? And that's so much about what we're thinking about is growing the population. President Ono earlier used, we need to become more sticky. I like that metaphor of to keep people here. So we have an audience question. I think it aligns directly to this, which is how can our state colleges, universities do a better job at keeping the thousands of students attending those schools stay in Michigan after graduation?
Let me take that one.
I want to hear from everybody.
Not a lot of people know that this region is near the very top of the country in terms of the number of graduates, highly skilled individuals. And we want to change everything so that people don't actually leave Michigan. We want them to stay here. We want them to fuel the startup companies. We want them to be the talent that attracts major companies to the state. And all of that is happening. All the conversations at this conference are happening so that we make it sticky for them to stay. We want to staple H-1 visas and green cards to diplomas. And we are talking about how we're going to do that. And it's really, really exciting. There's no reason we can't do that. The conversations are happening, and we have to welcome them, all of the students, when they arrive, whether they're from the state of Michigan or somewhere else in the United States. And we also have to make sure that every summer we maximize the number of them doing internships in companies here in Michigan. So when they decide where they're going to work, Michigan is at the front of the list.
Another aspect of that is to put community colleges at the center of what you're talking about. Every Michigander is a commuting distance from one of the great community colleges here, and far and away, community college graduates stay in the communities where they get their degrees. So putting a lot of emphasis on the entire infrastructure of higher ed, and particularly that front end for certificates and associate degrees at our great community colleges.
Lieutenant Governor, getting people to stay, it is part of the administration's goal.
I mean, it should be all of our goal. I think that alignment here, I think, is what's unique about the moment that we're in. And this is personal for me. I was one of those graduates. I was a double engineering major graduate at Michigan who wanted to be a software developer in 2005. And I went to the West Coast, and then I went to the East Coast, and I came home ultimately after 9 years to build my family and my future here. If we are successful, people will not feel driven to make that choice regardless of the industry that they choose. That is the goal of diversifying our economy today and making sure we have educational pathways for people to pursue that will prepare them for a diverse set of experiences and potential careers. And so we need to invest in all of that, and the types of partnership that we have to identify, that we can identify in conversations like this, I think will help us. And at the state level, we certainly are going to work to make sure that we are resourcing these types of programs. And I think it's time for the public sector and the private sector, frankly, to continue to resource it as well. Like the reason I became an engineer, for example, was because I was part of the Detroit Area Pre-College Engineering Program, DAPSEP. That program was funded by higher education, it was funded by private sector, philanthropy, public sector. That funding from the private sector pretty much went away in 2008. It hasn't returned to the level that it did when I was a child. I think it needs to. We say we want more talent, everyone needs to put up and invest. And I think that's the opportunity that we have, and everybody in this room can make that happen.
I would just like to add, I think the internships are very important. I think experiential learning across the board, getting students in with the local businesses. 40% of our students come from the east side of the state, being sure there's experiences across the state for students to partake in. We have about 86% of our students that stay in Michigan, and we draw from every county in Michigan. So we're really a place that I think the part of it is building the college experience that people see the community, feel a part of the community, a sense of belonging, feel supported, and feel that their career can be here. And I think, opportunities for us, a place we can do better is importing more students into the state, because I think we can make the same impact for students from out of state coming and having that very same experience and not wanting to leave Michigan with their career.
Philly, you're absolutely right. One of the things we have to do is to sell how wonderful it is to be in Michigan, how beautiful the state is, all the cultural attractions, and just having moments where we bring the students together and articulate that unabashedly. To be proud Michiganders, it's incredibly important. And I think that all that is happening as we speak.
The placemaking investments, I want to
Please.
I do think the placemaking investments that we need to make collectively will help with that. We know that we need to build communities that people want to live in, that people want to come to, that people want to raise families in. And so, that certainly means that there's a piece of that on affordable and available housing. There's a piece of that on transit and transportation. There's a piece of that on supporting our cultural institutions. And these are things that we all want to invest in, our arts and cultural economy, and I think that can help, again, have a collection of attractive communities that exist all across our diverse state, in both peninsulas and every region. We have a place that's amazing to live. And that will, I think, also help us keep folks here who come here for a college experience at any of our sort of institutions and want to do their first thing here, start their first business, have their first job, file their first patent, whatever it may be. They can do their first thing in Michigan and do it better.
And that really, in some respects, is the power of and. It's not either or. It's not just the higher ed. It's the community, too. And I think folks are really aligned with that here in the audience, because the next question I want to get to is, what efforts are underway to align your institution with community development and how we can work together? Important call.
Sorry about
You want to
that.
take? I mean, it'd be kind of. Who is it? Who's calling? Tell him hi.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Maybe it's a community member calling to answer this exact question. What are each of your institutions doing to partner with each of your communities, right? Like Grand Rapids, Ann Arbor, Lansing. These are thriving, cities. And I'm just curious what that can look like for our cities.
Well, it's interesting. I came to Grand Valley State University because I thought it was such an interesting place. It had been born of the community. I mean, the community advocated for an educational enterprise because there was an appreciation for how there was this bond in our vitality. And it lives every single day. So we co-create curriculum, as I said. We are very aggressive about the kinds of experiential learning. We went to our local hospital partner, Corewell Health, and they came to us and said, how do we prepare 500 more nurses? We have a problem. And if you look at the problem from kind of where are resources going, resources are going to traveling nurses, or they're going to bonus payments on searches. Let's put it at the front end and make the commitment to increase that kind of pipeline, giving the opportunity for that to begin quickly, because I think pace here matters too, like how we work, but also the tempo with which we work, because the opportunity you spoke to, in my mind, is a window of opportunity. I feel a sense of urgency like every day I get up. I think we've got to work harder, we've got to come up with more innovation, and it's a great space, but we sort of live and breathe working with our business leaders every day and organizations. The expectation is very mutual in terms of where we need to be within our communities.
We certainly want to work on our relationship with Ann Arbor because our largest campus is there. But what I want the takeaway to be here is that we're really committed to the whole state. I'm spending a lot of time with the mayor of Detroit and thinking about many different ways that we can give back to the city where the university was founded. We're very interested in Lansing. We're really interested in the entire state, Dearborn, Flint, and all the cities across the entire state. So we are going to be present like we've never been before. We're going to interact with county executives. We're going to talk about what their needs are, and we're going to try to meet those needs. And we're going to try to fold that into our strategic vision so that we are responsive to the needs of Michiganders.
We ask about community. Our community colleges across the state are hyper-local institutions with boards elected by the local community. And it's corny, but it's true. It's our middle name for most of us. And the first name for many of our community colleges is a particular place. I know many of the people at the conference here spend a lot of time in Lansing. If you spend a lot of time in Lansing, you know that the downtown campus of Lansing Community College is an anchor of downtown with great public art, beautiful, diverse architecture. That is what a lot of our institutions can do for placemaking, making sure that there's a vibrant part of the urban architecture where your institution is part of the lived space, the built environment. In addition to that, our West Campus, and many of our community colleges have this as well, all the advanced manufacturing training happens just a couple blocks away from one of the largest GM plants in the state. So both being a great place to be with public art and great public spaces, but also parts of our institutions that we invite corporate and community interests in to be in our buildings.
Lieutenant Governor, I'm going to turn to you because this question is directly for you, which is specifically how do we align or realign state and local funding to best support education? And I guess it's both K through 12. It's a big old bottle that I just opened, but also higher ed. Like, what can the state do when it comes to funding to help these workforce development conversations continue and be successful?
So I think again, it starts with continuing to articulate how much of a priority this is for the state of Michigan's success. As Jeff Donofrio alluded to, this has been a core focus of our administration since the very beginning, the governor's first State of the State address, when we announced the 60 by 30 goal. In the second budget, we had the Michigan Reconnect program funded. In every budget that we've put forward, we have had record high per pupil spending in K-12 education. We have proposed these increases. So I think at the state level, our priorities, frankly, are pretty clear. What we hope to have made true is also that there has been more equity in recognizing that different parts of our state need different types and levels of funding because they have different needs and have historically gotten less, and so therefore need to get more. That kind of partnership will then help us position more students to be successful as they enter into institutions like yours, because they will have been better supported. They will have been, frankly, trained by better supported and better respected educators as we seek to make sure that we can reset people's understanding and relationship and expectations of our education professionals. And frankly, I think that's the role that we have to play. We have to sort of set the stage and create the environment. And then it's up to local leadership. It's up to our local business communities and our respective local economies in Michigan to be partners, not be adversaries of your local educators and education systems, and understand how can you support, what can you do, what programs can you help to enable within those districts to help students become more successful. And I think that we have a really big opportunity right now to do that.
I just want to say that our recent efforts, supported by the state of Michigan in semiconductors, is really a great example of how we're all coming together to really leverage that, our alignment and support from the state for federal funding, for example, in the CHIPS of Science Act. So these investments that have been made in creating global semiconductor strength in the state of Michigan are an answer to that question. The state is doing it. I got to tell you, I've never been in a state where more individuals from state government want to talk to me about how we can work together. And it's a really wonderful thing.
Very true.
And there's a really long porch. Perfect for that, so I've heard. President Robinson, I want to ask all of you this question because I think it's really important, and it's something that Matt Elliott, the chair of the conference, is really digging into, is specifically talking about what success will look like, right? So we can all sit around here and kind of talk about, here's what we'd love to see, but this idea of how do we measure it, right? And so when we're talking about, again, building this workforce for the jobs that the state needs to be economically successful in the future, how are we going to know if we're successful in that? How should we go about measuring it?
So in the community college space, a number of us who've worked with the Aspen Institute define this as Community College 3.0, which is holding ourselves to a higher standard of post-college success. Not enough to get an associate's degree, get a great degree and a grade, and then go to GVSU or U of M. We want to keep track of you and make sure that you finish. That's why I literally did a fist pump when I heard from Mackenzie, who graduated from Michigan.
Congratulations,
MSU.
Mackenzie.
And that's what it is. It's post-college success. It also looks like transforming the communities that we serve. You know, our institutions, the two-year college institutions, really exist for two purposes. One is social mobility for Michiganders and their families, and economic development and prosperity for the regions that we're in. We're all in that business. And so having key metrics about making sure that we're adding value after students leave. As community colleges, we're a bridge, not a destination. Our students come, they want a great job, or they want to go and be with you all. And we want to help them get there and keep track of them as they achieve those things.
The metrics are pretty simple for us. We have about 21 startup companies, 500 inventions a year. We want to see more of those startups stay here. And those are the destinations to make it sticky for our graduates to stay here and to attract more students to come here. And as those companies grow, so we'll measure that every single year, thanks to BLM, we will be able to show progress over time as a sector. And the alignment that you're seeing on the stage, which is really reality, will bear fruit in the near future.
Yeah, I too think the metrics are quite clear. I mean, one is a growth metrics, growing enrollment, and that means growing graduates, particularly in the knowledge economy jobs. I think that even though we focus on the demographic decline, there are plenty of students that we're leaving behind that have promise, they have aptitude, they have interest, so we can do more there. Jeff presented our adults with some college. Then we need to be able to top off and upskill those. So knowing our metrics, where we're at with that population, seeing the growth. And then, as I said, I think Michigan's a wonderful draw for education. And so we should be able to have growth metrics across all three of those vectors. I also think we have to be bold around realizing that all of our businesses have a tech underground through line. And so we're going to need more engineers. We're going to need more computer scientists. We're going to need more skills that we don't even define yet. And we got to make a commitment to, like in Grand Valley's case, we're making a commitment to 3x those over the next 5 years and find the way to add to the resources. Can't all come from the state. I think it has to be private business. I think it has to be partnerships, has to be new ways to reuse dollars that are out there in the system. But we're going to have to fuel those growth objectives because we can't just watch the decline line, which will happen if it's business as usual.
Lieutenant Governor, I mean, 60 by 30, that's a metric.
That's
right there.
It's true. I think that one's important. I am really interested in college completion. We have done a lot of work on access and affordability. Again, the Reconnect program, tuition-free pathway over 25. We proposed lowering the eligibility age to 21, and instantly will make 300,000 more people able to go to community college tuition-free. The Michigan Achievement Scholarship, 4 out of 5 graduating high school seniors will qualify for a scholarship. 2 out of 3 entering college freshmen in the fall will be able to go to college tuition-free because of the Michigan Achievement Scholarship. We've done a lot on affordability and access. We do need to make sure that we're doing everything we can and working with your institutions to resource the kinds of programs that help people stay and succeed in college. And I do think that when folks are able to do that and see that they will be supported in their success, whatever path it will be, it then creates more conditions for people to want to then stay in this state that supports them. To know that when you want to start that first business, that you will have things like the Michigan Economic Opportunity Fund available to you, the $10 million fund that we launched earlier this year for women entrepreneurs, Black entrepreneurs, people of color, people living with disabilities who were not able to get a bank loan, but now they can get a loan from the state of Michigan. To change the capital environment so that people with ideas can do their thing and be their best. And we see more of those businesses not only start here in the state of Michigan, but get financed in the state of Michigan. So they don't have to go out of state or to the coast to get their first round or their seed round or their venture round for those high-tech companies. These are the opportunities that we have, and those are the measures that I'm looking at for the kinds of growth in our economy overall, in our population overall, and our retention of our high-tech talent, which we will need to make sure we can lead in these future growing sectors. Like, I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, if I could just really quickly agree with the Lieutenant Governor, all of our competitor states have set these attainment goals. What's been different in Michigan, and I was president of a college in one of those states. We all have some kind of college completion goal. In Michigan, we've been backing them up with strategies that are specifically designed to meet that goal. It's a big goal, right? But Michigan Reconnect, Futures for Frontliners, all of the work we're doing is strategically pointed at getting there. And as a community college person, for all the 2-year colleges in the room, we really aren't going to get there unless we take a look at Jeff's slide about the attainment of certificates and associate's degrees.
Yeah.
That's where we'll actually have a shot at meeting that goal.
Well, I can tell you.
I need to give an update on the 60 by 30 because we talked about it. I should tell you where we're at. So when we announced that goal, the state was at 44% attainment. Right now, I mean, I guess we're about to do the graduation year, so we'll get some more data, but we have broken 51% in basically 2 years. So when you ask that question about pride and how that pride translates to progress, I think that is exactly what it means. I have all of the confidence in the world and the people of Michigan that if we make a bet on one another and a bet on the partnerships that are possible, that we can exceed all of our greatest expectations.
Well, we've got to wrap, and I could talk to you all. And from the amount of questions that have come in, everyone could talk to you all for a much longer time. But we've got to wrap. But I want to hear from each of you very quickly. So lightning round. The power of and is the theme of this conference. And you have all of these folks here right now. I'm curious, what's the one thing that everyone in this room can do along with your institutions to promote the power of and, thinking about education? President Robinson, I'm going to start with you.
Quickly, it would be a mindset change. At places like this, we always talk about how many folks need to go into trades, how many folks need to go into apprenticeships, and then we go off and we do something different with our neighbors and our kids. Somebody's ready to jump on that. Because it is a mindset change that, again, I call community colleges the original both and solution. You don't have to choose a trade or college. Go
Okay.
to one of our amazing community colleges.
Mindset change, lightning round. President Ono, what's something?
And is the key word. Business, government, and the educational sector have to come together like never before.
Okay, President Mantella.
So I think as education constraints, we can't compete and do public harm. We've got to lift up what's working and what's not working. We got to share it so that we work on the problems together.
Okay, LG.
You have to be part of the solution, not just complain.
We're going to leave it there, everyone. Thank you so much. President Robinson, President Santa Ono, President Mantella, the Lieutenant Governor. Round of applause for their thinking.